My man is up in Knoxville, Tennessee. Russell Biven, he's with WBIR. Russell is always in a good mood. Good morning, Russell. How are you, sir?
Hey, Russell.
Good morning. How you guys doing?
See?
We're okay. How are you?
We're doing good.
What's the
times over here.
What's the real scoop on what happened on the firing?
Did he get fired during the game, Russell?
I'll be completely honest with you. I don't know if he did or not. I've read that as well, and I truly don't know. I'd tell you if I did, but clearly there were some issues. They'd only been here about 4 months, and but I don't know if it happened during the game or not. I find it hard to believe, but we are in 2020.
What kind of contract does he have, Russell? I mean, these tough times right now with COVID, not a lot of money coming in. I know he had at least, was it 2 or 3 year deal that he had, and was it 800,000 a year?
I think it was more of a memorandum type thing, and where he'll get paid a certain amount. I'm not sure it was a contract yet, but he'll get a certain, maybe like one-time payment, I believe, is my understanding.
Okay, I thought I read they owed him $800 and something thousand. I'm just going to pay it out.
I do believe that's around that. That is the number that he'll get.
Well, I mean, that softens the blow a little bit, doesn't it, Russell?
Yeah, that would soften the blow for sure, I think.
All right, Russell, tell us what is the mindset right now, this Tennessee football team? They've had 6 bad quarters, but prior to that, they've played well, and now it seems like it's a dumpster fire up there. We know it's not. What's really going on. Tell us where Tennessee is mentally right now.
Honestly, I think you nailed it, because I was thinking the same thing. They came out, they played 2 good games. Georgia's a good football team. You thought maybe they had a chance going in, and obviously, they got beat pretty badly there. But Kentucky was just a different story from what you've seen last year. They had believe it or not, at 7 games, had the longest winning streak in the country at the point going into Georgia. So you think, okay, well, maybe Georgia's a loss, but the Kentucky game, things just looked different. Things seemed a little discombobulated. When you just watch kind of the players, I was actually there just watching the players, just things seemed a little bit different, a little bit off. I know we're in a different year, 22,000 people there, but every team's dealing with that. And it just didn't seem like they were on the same page. Now, last year when Tennessee reached that point, Coach Pruitt got them back on track, and all of a sudden they ended the season really, really well. So I know he's trying to do the same thing this year. He's going to take over more of the defense, and obviously, as you all know, he's been that's kind of his expertise anyway, wherever he has been. But it'll be interesting to see how they do against Alabama, and then, of course, the schedule doesn't get any easier, so the Kentucky game was really, really big. But I think he really felt like he needed to make a change on the defensive line side of the ball, and he'll kind of take over some of those roles and try to see if he can get things turned in the right direction.
Quarterbacks wise, is he good enough to do any damage against anybody he plays this time, the quarterback?
That's a tough one. I thought he made some really good throws in the first 2 games, and even against Georgia, I thought he made some really good throws in the first 2 quarters. I believe now they're in a situation where they feel like they have to be extra careful to put him in situations where he can succeed, almost to a point where you can't advance the ball down the field unless you establish the running game. And then obviously against Alabama, that's hard to do. Maybe not as hard this year as last year, but if you can't establish that running game, then they might be in some real trouble with him. But, he came out as a 5-star dual quarterback, and you haven't seen him run hardly at all. Didn't run hardly at all against Kentucky. So I don't know if that's on purpose by the coaching staff or by him or it's going to be an interesting test for Tennessee for sure. I don't think anybody's expecting them to go out and win, but the type of showing they put out will definitely make a difference, I believe.
We're talking with Russell Biven up in Knoxville, Tennessee. Russell, Lane Kiffin, he played Alabama really well. And Tennessee, last year came here. I mean, they played the wheels off of Alabama. So I think maybe these guys that have been inside the program maybe have a little bit better feel of what to do, what can be successful against Alabama. Does that give them a little bit of advantage that Jeremy Pruitt's been inside the doors over here? He knows Nick Saban's not changing, so he kind of knows what coach is going to do. Does that help them in preparation? It seemed like it did Lane Kiffin, and it seemed like it did Tennessee last year.
Absolutely, no question about it. And then you just think about, Garantano on the goal line last year when he tried to call his own deal and sneak in and fumbled, and Alabama went back the other way. How different things might have been with that, and so I absolutely think that has something to do with it, because Coach Pruitt knows the ins and outs of that Alabama offense and the Alabama defense, but especially on the defensive side of the ball. And, Coach Chaney has faced Nick Saban and done a pretty good job against him in the past. And so I absolutely think that has something to do with it. And I do believe that Jeremy Pruitt is the right guy over here. You know how things get when you lose a game you're not supposed to lose. I mean, the great teams win those big games, but the great teams always beat the teams they're supposed to beat. And that didn't happen on Saturday. And so the fan base gets off, we're heading in this direction again. But I think Coach Pruitt has them in a direction, and that was a really bad outing. He came out and said it was a bad outing. We got to get things going again. But I definitely think the work he has done for Coach Saban in the past, the philosophies he learned from Coach Saban, coaching that he tries to implement at different places will definitely and has definitely helped him as he's faced Alabama before.
Yeah.
Is this recruiting class as good as indicated? This upcoming recruiting class?
The more I see 5 stars that don't go out and perform like 5 stars, you start to wonder, whether the stars are really that stars. But as far as I understand, it is a really good recruiting class coming in, and that's where they really have made hay in the offseason. Can they translate that on the field is, I think, what people are really waiting to see.
Russell, playing all SEC games, I think Dad and I, we just talked about with Max Howell, Alabama, they've got so much talent. I mean, they could probably show up and maybe not be quite ready to play and still win the game, although Coach Saban seems to always have them ready. But it's razor thin. I'm sure Tennessee wishes they had maybe a non-conference game against a Tennessee Chattanooga or something where they could kind of maybe look at some other guys. How difficult is it on these coaches going SEC game after SEC game? You look at Auburn, Ole Miss, the line is 3. Kentucky, Missouri, it's 5.5. South Carolina, LSU, it's 6. I mean, these games are all going to be really, really close. It seems like whoever can have their team mentally ready has the advantage that weekend.
For the fans, especially if you're not a hardcore for some of these teams, it has to be an absolute blast to watch. But for these coaches, I can't imagine the pressure they're under. I mean, you look at Arkansas, had they won that Auburn game, look at what they're doing, in this all SEC thing. So for some schools that are taking advantage of it, it can be a really powerful thing. But for others, there is no doubt in my mind at all that the out-of-conference games mean something to the good teams in the SEC or the teams that are kind of middle of the pack in the SEC, especially because then they can see what they have, make the adjustments, maybe get some younger guys in to see what they would look like in different situations. Whereas in these SEC games, you don't have that luxury. You just don't. So people across the country that might not know football as well don't realize how incredibly difficult the Southeastern Conference is in football. It just is. That's the way it is, regardless of whether you're the best team or the last team. It is the most difficult conference in the nation, hands down. And you're playing 10 games against those teams. There's no room for error, and there's no room to go out and say, hey, why don't we skip this season and let some other guys in to see what they do, because every game means something. I mean, it means something to you if you're a competitor anyway. But with this type of schedule, it is ramped up by an incredible amount. And I think it puts a lot of pressure on the coaches, which in turn puts even more pressure on the players as well. So there's no doubt about it. Out-of-conference games, I believe, help especially the middle of the road. There are teams that are trying to build, their programs with some new head coaches in, like Coach Pruitt.
Yeah, you look at the rest of Tennessee's schedule after Alabama. They're at Arkansas before the season. You said, well, we probably can get that one now. Who knows?
That's right. Yeah.
Then you got Texas A&M.
Now Arkansas is looking really good.
Yeah, you got Texas A&M, who looks like they're the second best team in the West. Then you're at Auburn, at Vandy, and finish up with Florida. Of those games right there, Tennessee will probably only be favored in the Vanderbilt game, right, Russell?
I would think you're, from a favor standpoint, from a line standpoint, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, maybe if they had won Kentucky, that may be the same. Maybe they'd be favored over Arkansas, but I don't know. I mean, I think Arkansas is a pretty good football team right now. At least they're playing as a team, which means a lot. It seems like they enjoy playing together.
Yep, no doubt. That.
On the other side of the ledger, I guess Rick Barnes' team is going to be good. Alabama's team is supposed to be very, very good. Kentucky's good. I guess Rick's team's good. I guess you can comment on that.
Yeah, I think they're going to be. I think they're going to be really good. I do, and I think he feels good about the team. I'm sure you saw yesterday where they're going to be playing Kansas. That just got kind of announced as
big deal.
Going to be a big matchup. I think that'll be a great game, and obviously a great game from a recruiting standpoint. But he has some tremendous talent that has come in that are freshmen. But as both you guys know, they've got to work. I mean, he makes them work. So I think that coaching staff will have these guys ready to go. I really do. What I think is going to be interesting is giving everybody an extra year and allowing certain guys to come back. How are they going to navigate that with great classes coming in for next year or 2022 or the following year? I think for every coach and every program and every recruit.
Complicated.
I don't know. I'd love to hear y'all's comments and thoughts on that as well. How's that work especially with basketball?
It gives me a headache thinking about it. I don't know. I guess that one-time transfer rule, you're going to see a lot of guys transfer because those rosters are going to be so full. There's not going to be room, so you can some of these schools can probably do their best recruiting in the transfer portal, Russell. Can't they? They get a better player there probably. Some of the lower level schools anyway.
Yeah, and you start thinking about, some programs are talking about just having a coach just to recruit, just to monitor the transfer portal, just to be a recruiter within that because it's going to be, so important.
Yeah. Russell, what is the attendance going to be this weekend up in Knoxville? How many people are they allowing in the stadium? It looked like when Texas A&M was playing Georgia, that place looked like it was 3/4 full. I know they could have to turn people away. Are tickets hard to come by up there right now for this game? And how many people will be there?
I think it's a little less than 25,000 they're allowing in there, and there was a good crowd there this past weekend. And this one's sold out, so people are still going to go. They still love Tennessee football. In fact, before I got on with you guys, my wife called and she said, "Hey, so-and-so is looking for tickets. They're all, they're all sold out all over the place." And, so people still enjoy Tennessee football, even if, last weekend wasn't so great. They're still there. There was a lot of booing this weekend, and I thought, gee, if there was 102,000 people had been there, that wouldn't have been so hot. But, you know what? I'm just thankful. I'm really thankful that these young men get to play football, even if fans are talking about they don't like how their team is performing, because I know, like how important sports are to some of these kids in their lives that maybe they can't have at home. And I'm thankful that they're out there getting to compete and just play the sport this year, and more or less concerned about who's winning and losing, and more concerned about these lives of the young men that they get to go out and do this.
Russell, you don't have
I think
any
that maybe puts some perspective. I wish more fans had perspective like that, because that's why we have sports to start with. When you think about the whole thing, it's about competing and, developing and learning life lessons. And, I think that's happening right now in a very difficult, uncertain year for everybody on the planet.
Russell, you don't have any of those orange and white checkered overalls, do you? That you wear? You don't wear those, do you?
I'd have to get some bigger pairs. I do not. I do not.
I think you need to get Dad a pair of those. He'd look good in those, wouldn't he? In those orange.
You know what? We should do that.
Yeah.
I think I may send him some of those.
Would you wear those, Dad? Those overalls?
I don't think so. I appreciate it.
How's Philip Fulmer doing? I know everybody down here is fond of Philip Fulmer. How's he doing up there, Russell?
He's doing good. He is. I think he's enjoying his role. He's obviously football is kind of king, but he's enjoying the role. He's with what he's doing and spreading out and talking, making sure all the other sports are doing well. And I know he stayed involved heavily in the community when he was not part of the program, and which I thought was great. He could have moved and done this or that, but he stayed involved here. He and I worked on some nonprofits together, and he loves his community, and he obviously loves the University of Tennessee. So, disappointed right now, I'm sure, of what happened this past weekend, but overall things are heading in the right direction for the men's basketball team, the women's basketball team, and some of the other sports from the tennis and that kind of thing are doing well, but obviously he's a football guy and would like to see them perform better on the field.
Did he send Jeremy Pruitt his resume about maybe applying for that defensive line coaching job, Russell?
I don't know. Maybe he should have. Maybe he should have.
He's probably sitting there. I wish if he'd come down here and ask me, I'd help him coach the defensive line.
Yeah,
I think
there's a couple of rules in place on that one. I think he had a 17-game winning streak at one point. So that 7-game winning streak that didn't look so hot to him, I'm sure.
No doubt. Dad, anything else for Russell?
No, I appreciate you being on, Russell. It's great. Appreciate it very much.
Russell,
I tell you, I always love the time. Always love the time with you guys, and every time I hang up, I get about 50 text messages. So I'll be looking forward to that.
Well, tell everybody where they can find you, Russell.
At WBIR and Channel 10 here, and on Twitter at WBIR Russell, or all the other social medias. But it's not about that for me. I just love being on with you guys.
Thanks, Russell.
Thank you, Russell. Appreciate it.
All right, y'all have a great day.
All right.